You're listening to Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran. Please subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and leave a positive comment if you like us. Out of the Box Podcast is sponsored by hugmetease.com. Hug Me Tease. Spread love, give a hug. hugmetease.com. I'm here today with the host of the very, very popular podcast Solopreneur Hour, Michael O'Neill. Michael, how are you doing today?
Couldn't be better.
Oh, you sound so excited and happy. What's going on?
I'm excited and happy. I'm always excited and happy.
But you sound more excited and happy. How is your podcast doing?
Well, it's funny you should ask. It's going really well, actually. It's 2014 for the show has been unbelievable. I'm exactly 6 months into the show as we speak, and it's just I don't even know what maybe 3 weeks ago I had the well, let me put it in perspective. So.
Well, first of all, let's start from the beginning, because a lot of people don't know your story and you're introducing yourself to a whole new audience of listeners on my podcast. So how did you get started? You're saying 6 months ago. What were you doing before? What is your podcast story? Everyone has a unique and interesting story.
Oh, you know me. I'm long-winded. I love
it.
And then wrap it all up at the end. But so you'll get this. You'll see the flow. So what happened was, in the podcasting world, everything's about downloads. Like, how many downloads can you get, blah, blah, blah. And it's always, you're sort of, if you nerd out about it like I do, it's a huge game of numbers. So when you first start a show, it's like, will anybody listen to it? Then it was like, okay, well, now 10 people listen to it. And then can I get into 3 figures? So now 100 people are listening to it. Can I get to 500? Can I get to 4 figures? Which is a big deal, because when you get to 4 figures, you're going to be there for a while. It's going to take you a long time to go from 1,000 to 10,000. So it was sort of this progression, and it was sort of steadily going up. And then about a month ago, I finally had 2 back-to-back 2,000 download days. And that was a big deal. Because normally, when you launch a show, you get the big spike, and then it goes way down, 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 and then you launch a show and you get the big spike. So the fact that I got 2,000 on a down day was a big deal. And then today...
It was the day that you hadn't released a new episode, basically.
Right, exactly. And then today, and I'd only hit, to put it in perspective, between August, when I started the show, and we'll totally get to why, and I'd only hit 2,000 downloads 4 times. Total. And then from the beginning of February 2nd or 3rd, until now, I literally can't even count. Like, now I've hit 3,000 3 times. I've hit 2,000 like 25 times or something. And it's just growing like a weed right now. And that's why I'm so excited.
That's great.
Thank you. So, to answer your first question.
You are long-winded.
Technically, that was your second question. First question, or your second question, the answer is, I started a podcast because I'd been, years ago, I had discovered, after going to work at a Fortune 500 company that I'd been hired as the creative director for, I realized that I was completely unemployable. And
so that's your hashtag that you use on Twitter. I always see that hashtag unemployable.
Yeah.
For those of you out of the box listeners who don't know what you're talking about, what does that mean?
Basically, here's what happens when what it means is when you know too much.
And you can't put up with the BS at certain corporate places.
Exactly. So if you start surrounding yourself with successful people, entrepreneurs, and people that are really kind of moving and shaking in the world, and you start doing a lot of the reading, like I have the books called The Sexy Six that we can get into if you want. But if you read the book,
I do want to get into them.
You read the books and you get this whole new mindset of how work should work and what your life should be looking like. Once you're armed with that knowledge, it is very difficult to go back and punch the clock and work a 9-to-5 job and expect that this sort of middle manager that doesn't know anywhere near what you know, it has to boss you around.
I think a lot of people deal with that, Michael. I think so many people work in a job where they're, more educated than their supervisor, or more educated than their manager, or their company has a lot of corporate bureaucracy or corporate rules that just don't make any sense and don't work towards any type of efficiency. Is that what you're talking about?
It is. And I'm one of those guys, I think, just because I was originally from Philadelphia and I listened to a lot of stand-up comedy. I'm fairly unfiltered about that. Like I wear everything. So frustrated. It is not a difficult. It's not the math isn't difficult to do on that. And so once that happens,
like I'm a Philly boy. Come on, I say what's on my mind.
that happens, you're dead in the corporate world. Like I won't play the game. That's sort of the game of being
PC
correct and just being diplomatic sometimes when it's like, man, we could do 9 laps around this, or we can just do it and it's done and boom. So I found.
Are you a 4-hour work week fan and how Tim Ferriss kind of talks about how meetings are just sort of managers, massaging each other?
I think he put it a slightly different way, but yes. That's book number 3 of my Sexy 6.
That's funny. Okay, I want to hear all these books now. But back to what you're saying, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, the point is that at some point you walk into that and you go, wait a second, I have a lot of other options. I don't have to, just because I went to school for this doesn't mean I have to do this the rest of my life, because there are people building $1 million businesses in months now. We have so much opportunity online and otherwise to sort of build in a spot where people do what I call finding your own swing. Like you do that thing that you're really well equipped to do, and you can actually get paid for it if you know the right steps. So what I do on my show is I find these people that were very successful solopreneurs that are what we call, my tagline is job security for the unemployable. And I wear the badge proudly unemployable. Like it's a positive, not a negative.
Because you're saying that you're an out of the box thinker. You're the type of person that is not going to go with the mainstream. You're going to create your own opportunities. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many different careers. I mean, you are, I would probably say, unemployable. You were on my show.
I am very unemployable, and it's very, very hard for me, and most comedians in general. I had a girlfriend of mine who's a comedian, and she got a job at Macy's, and she promptly left on her lunch break and never came back. She was employed for about 1 day. And she said, you know what, I just couldn't do it, because I know that even though I needed the money at the time, I'm a creative person, and because she's a comedian, obviously, and she's like, and I would find a way to make the money some other way.
Right. And that's the thing. If you can do that, and people mostly just have fear around it. That's the whole point, is that people, they've got the 401k, they've got the gig, they're stable. So there's usually a lot of fear around what does that first step look like? How do I fire my boss and leave this, go start something on my own that's going to make me happy? And there's a lot of fear around that. So
I call it hustle mode. I have not had a steady job the way is traditional. And my husband is a 9-to-5 guy. He works in the IT industry. He loves his job. He works for a video game company. They have cupcakes and beer on Fridays. It's like every guy's dream job. So he's pretty happy there. But, when we first got together, I was always hustling for the next dollar. And I have certain techniques that I use that actually make me create more money than if I were working a normal 9-to-5 job, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
Like I purposely, so I have a Roth IRA, and I have other investment vehicles that I use as well. And I put money into them on a regular basis. Whether I have the money or not, I do automatic investing, right?
Right.
And so that makes my bank account low. And so even if I don't have the money that month, I always invest. And then when I see that my bank account is low, it forces me to hustle and get more gigs. Instead of being like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm like, all right, I got to create that money, because it's not going to be there otherwise.
Right.
And so whether that month I've made a lot of money or I haven't made a lot of money, I always invest it so that my bank account is low. I purposely want my bank account to be low because it puts me in an artificial hustle mode.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm like, oh no, I have to hustle for money, and I have to get a gig, and I have to book something, and it's not a sense of desperation, because in the back of my mind, I know I'm financially okay.
Right. It's setting your clock 10 minutes fast.
Exactly. It's like setting your clock 10 minutes fast. And I actually do that. My clock is actually 7 minutes fast. And so I'm always on time.
Like, I'm fooling myself every second of the day.
It's so weird, because even though I know my clock is fast, it's like your brain, I don't know, your brain does this weird thing, but I encourage people to do this. A lot of people are kind of scared of having a low bank account, and they go into fear mode and poverty mode, and they, oh no, what am I going to do? And, or a lot of people will dip into their savings, or they'll dip into their investments because they get really desperate. And I would say just pretend like that stuff doesn't exist. Just imagine it doesn't exist, and your account's low and you got to get in hustle mode. And you know what, Michael? I always create the money. I always create it every time.
Well, and imagine then if you, and this is why I think people that train on mindset, you sort of make fun of the Tony Robbins of the world, but if they're...
I never make fun of Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins.
Well, some people do, and
those are negative people.
Those sometimes that are able to allow or sort of incite somebody to reframe in their mind. Because what you just said is so amazing. It's I will always find the money. So
no, I said I always create the money. There's a difference.
Okay, right. But the point is, it's like you get a small purse, you're going to fill it up. You get a big purse, you're going to fill it up. So if you start thinking in that way, like when someone says, "How you doing?" and someone goes, "I'm just getting by," you're just getting by. Like that's
exactly
what you're doing. But if you start really thinking about what does my actual dream life look like right now for my show, my brain, all I'm thinking about is 100,000 downloads a month. I want 6 figures. That's the big thing. And it's crazy how it's manifesting. You know what I mean? And I'm forcing it. There's a lot of things I'm doing from a social media standpoint that's really forcing it to happen. But
You got to share. You got to share because I want my numbers to go up, up, up. I'm hearing all your success, and I'm stealing from John Lee Dumas. You're igniting me.
All right. Well, so yeah, that's. Are we going to talk about all business stuff? Because I was really.
No, we're not. Let's talk about fun stuff.
I thought we were just going to curse and talk about boobs the whole time or something. To talk other things, but I want to be valuable. So
I do want you to be valuable. So tell my listeners about the 6 sexy books because they sound very sexy, and I'm excited that I already named one off the list without even knowing what your 6 sexy was. Maybe I should guess. Let's play a game where I guess what the books are.
All right, so I'll let you off the hook, and you don't have to guess them in order.
Okay, got it.
But
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
No, but it's a good one. Okay. Before you go on, these are the books I'm going to give you are all very practical. They're not very I would consider Think and Grow Rich a very theoretical type book.
Okay, got it.
Mine are very practical.
I'm totally blanking now because I'm overanalyzing.
That happens.
Let's see. I guessed Tim Ferriss. So what else would be on your list? What'd you say?
Start with some of the real basics. So for you to know anything about finances, what would you read?
You don't have Rich Dad Poor Dad on there, do you?
That's book number 1.
Oh my gosh!
Book number 1.
I'm good. How good am I?
You're good. What's book number 2? Along the same vein. Don't get too fancy with this one. You're very close.
How do you know I'm close?
Well, I can hear it in your voice.
The listeners are guessing. They're yelling, "What? Come on, Rosie, you know it."
Well, close. Well, you'll know why because when I tell you, you're going to go, "Oh, yeah, I was totally close."
Okay, tell me.
What was book number 1?
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
What's book number 2?
Book number 2 is
same guy.
The quadrant.
Yes, the cash flow quadrant.
The cash flow quadrant.
Here's why. So book number 1, excuse me, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, that'll start giving you a vocabulary about, and by the way, here's how I preface these books.
Can I just say that I love Rich Dad Poor Dad, and all of my listeners, please go listen to it. And please follow everything that Kiyosaki says because it's so true. I took a finance class, and I was a Rich Dad Poor Dad fan, and I had to, because you know how in the book Kiyosaki talks about how we learn the definition of an asset and a liability incorrectly in society.
Yeah.
And then he reassesses what it is. So I took a finance class and they actually taught it the opposite way, the wrong way that he says.
Right.
And it was so hard for my brain. When I was learning it, I was this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This isn't an asset. This isn't a liability. Why am I listing this? This doesn't make sense. And my head was going to explode.
You guys are all wrong.
You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not an asset because it's a debt. Don't you get it?
Right. That's the point. Now you know why people become unemployable. What I say about these books is, if you're in a spot where you don't know what you want to do and you're struggling with kind of that regular 9-to-5 gig, you can read these books in this order, because you have to read them in this order because they all build on each other. You will open up the same front door you've had for years, but the entire landscape will look different when you walk outside. And that's what I really love about that. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad teaches you kind of the vocabulary of how a wealthy person thinks about money. Cash flow.
By the way, have you played Cash Flow?
Yeah, of course.
Has the game gone on for like 5 hours?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done it, but yes, it was a long one.
I've never played Cash Flow where it lasted shorter than 2 hours. It always goes on for 2 to 5 hours. One time it didn't even end, and we actually all had to go home because we were so tired.
Right.
And we're like, when are we going to get out of this rat race?
Cards Against Humanity is the other fun one. So if Rich Dad Poor Dad teaches you the vocabulary, the cash flow quadrant teaches you sort of sentences, and it teaches you sort of how to really frame finance. And the third thing, when you get into the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, that's when the efficiency piece kicks in. So that's when you start becoming efficient, and you start understanding how you could say online business, but just sort of overall business works. And then what's book number 4?
Okay, so I've guessed 3 out of your 6 books already, and I've read them, so I'm really excited.
Book number 4.
What would be next?
I were speaking in front of 500 millionaires, and I said, what was the number one book that influenced your career the most? This would be the one they would raise their hands and say.
Oh my God, I'm 50-50 right now. The pressure's mounting. Millionaires.
You get this, you would get a real gold star.
I don't think I'm going to get it because I'm going blank.
You got another one that you think is that was profound for you? This one is the most profound for me, this particular book.
Yeah, let's see if I read it. I might not have read it. I'm gonna have to call in a lifeline.
It's called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
I have not read that, so I never would have guessed it.
Yeah, it's the one. So
E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Okay, everyone, put that on your list.
But that's book number 4. Book number 5 is a book by a guy named Tom Rath. And so what the E-Myth does is now that you've got this idea you want to start a business, the E-Myth teaches you how to work on the business and not in the business. So it's a really great book.
Oh my gosh, that is so important. I just want everyone to know that I have a friend who is a multimillionaire. He has 3 businesses, very successful businesses, but he is probably one of the most miserable people I know because he works
70 hours a week.
So much, and he doesn't understand the power of delegating.
He needs to read it.
And he doesn't understand. Well, I think he has deep-rooted issues with letting go because he's a control freak.
That happens.
Because he's read quite a bit of kind of similar mind thinkings. I haven't read this book, but I'm assuming from what you're telling me. And he talks the talk, but he doesn't do it. He's working 80 hours a week, and he's just killing himself. And it's I think it's really important for people to understand, like, delegating is like pretty cool.
You should actually get him that book that book is my most gifted book.
Okay, and I'll have to read it myself. So let's hear the other 2. Drum roll, please.
Is by a guy named Tom Rath, and it's called Strengths Finder 2.0.
I don't know that one either, so I'm glad I got 50-50 while I could.
What's great about it is a lot of people don't realize what they're really great at. And what this thing says to do is focus on the thing instead of sort of focusing on like, oh, I'm going to become a better public speaker. When you're an awful public speaker, go focus on the thing that you're great at and let the people that are
good at public speaking doing that. Yeah.
Speaking, go be your evangelist. That's fine. But this book really, it's actually more of a test. You can't buy this one used, and you can't buy the audiobook because it's all like 140 question online test. And once you take this entire test, it spits out your 5 greatest strengths.
Okay, repeat the name of the book again.
It's called Strengths Finder 2.0 by
Strengths Finder 2.0. Okay, I am going to try that.
And you got to buy it new. And then book number 6, if you do anything online, especially with social media, it's a book called Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. And it really is, it is the Bible for how to run your online business in the new millennium. And
those are your sexy 6?
He's written 2 other books since then, but to me, this one still lands the hardest. Yeah, that's the sexy six. Boom.
And then just read them and become a success. I love it. I really, really like talking about alternative success, because I think it's really, really important for people to define themselves outside of the mainstream. It's really hard to find happiness when you are trying to follow someone else's ideal of happiness. And I think that most people actually would benefit from living a little bit more outside the box and a little bit more outside their comfort zone.
Well, I think a lot of people live a life of, I had a friend that said, if we had a scale, if we had a scale of 1 to 10, most people live between 4 and 6. So we'd really benefit by really, everyone's waiting for somebody else to go first. So go first. Like, be the first one on the dance floor. Be the first one to speak up. Be the first one to hug. Be the first one to...
But the fear really doesn't make any logical sense. Fear comes from a sense of fight or flight. It's a very reptilian brain, basic thinking, basic feeling type of urge. And it doesn't just affect business, and it doesn't just affect your career. It affects every aspect of life, including relationship. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't understand that we're holistic creatures and everything is connected. Like, if you're feeling crappy at your job, you're going to, possibly take it home into your personal life.
Right.
If you're feeling crappy and you're not taking care of yourself physically, like working out, eating healthy, it affects every single part. We're not robots. We're not machines where one section of us is over here and another section is over here. So the fear isn't just, if you're fearful of losing your job, or you're fearful of, being unemployable, then you're probably fearful in a lot of other areas, and you're not risking where you should be. And risk is like where all the cool stuff happens.
Yes, it is where all the fun happens, isn't it?
It is. And I love it. I love it. And I don't, even the times that I've risked and failed, which have been many.
Well, is it a fail though? I mean, I think that's one thing. There's a mindset involved in being
it's a positive failure. It's not a failure like I'm devastated. It's a failure. I don't know. It depends on the failure. Certain failures, I look back, and even though I've learned and grown so much, part of my ego is still kind of like, I wish that didn't happen.
Yep.
and then I have failures that are like, I'm glad that it happened because I learned a lot, and I'm like super, positive now because of that.
Entrepreneurs fail multiple times a day. It's just part of, okay. And you just sort of go, all right, well, that didn't work out. And you kind of have to move on that way. But
it's just shifting your relationship with failure to be less drastic and devastating.
And it's if you start really reframing it that it's not actually failure, it's just that lesson, then you're good to go. I heard a great quote the other day, actually, which is entrepreneurs jump off a cliff and build a plane on the way down.
Well, I might be in the water.
No, that's not true, because you're doing this, and you're a model, and you do all these things that are very entrepreneurial. And when you need to, you can get your hustle on, and you can put money in that bank account, and that's not everybody can do that. So that's really something to be proud of.
I think everyone has the potential to do it, but a lot of people haven't tested that muscle. I think that, you're saying it as a lesson, which is very positive. I don't have any negative connotation with the word failure. I think that, something happens and we miss the mark. It's kind of the same thing with sin. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, sin is this horrible thing, and if you do it, you're going to hell, and blah, 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 blah. No, that's not even what it means. Sin just means a misstep. The literal meaning is that you're off. So you're not in alignment, right? You're not in integrity. You're not focusing your full whatever. And it's kind of the same thing with failure. Failure doesn't necessarily mean your entire life is over. It just means, hey, that didn't work out. Let's try something else,
Exactly. That's once you get that your mindset, that doesn't mean that it can't hurt when it happens. It's almost like,
oh, it hurts.
It's a breakup. My analogy for that is, at some point an orthopedic surgeon has broken their arm, and they know everything about what's happening in their arm, and they know that it's totally fixable. All right, well, this stinks. I got 6 weeks now that I've got to deal with this. Just because they're an orthopedic surgeon doesn't make it go any faster. And just because you can be super conscious through a breakup, but it doesn't mean it's not going to hurt.
It still hurts,
for
yeah.
a while. It's just going to go, okay, I know I've got to go through this process. It's going to happen. So same thing happens with failure or a lesson as an entrepreneur. You go through this thing, you go, okay, well, that didn't work. This sucks. I'm bummed out. But you know what? I can make my own identity. And my version of that, Rosie, was both of my parents had passed away. I literally lost every dime I had ever made. I mean,
how did you lose every dime?
because my life was mom falls and breaks her hip, needs 24 days of rehab, insurance pays for 10, it's $2,000 a day. So I lost my house, I lost 2 cars, I lost my 401k, my retirement, everything. I lost all my money. And
why did you have 2 cars, Mike?
Well, I had really? Are you really asking me that?
Yes, I'm really asking you that. Come on.
I had a vintage race car, and I had a regular daily driver. And now I'm back up to 2 cars. So
you're so funny.
You know, I have the first date car and the second date car.
What's the first date car?
A piece of Jeep Grand Cherokee, 99, 240,000 miles on it.
That was the first car I ever had, but mine was in 92, black, with a tape deck.
And mine did have a tape deck. I took the tape deck out.
I took mine out too, and I had one of those CD players where you could take the face off. That was my first car ever.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the first date.
And then what's the second date car?
The second date car is a fully restored
Porsche.
It is. It's a fully restored 1969 911.
Did I just guess that?
You did. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere in my.
I have not seen it anywhere. Did I just totally guess that?
Yeah, it's a 1969.
So the first date car is to get rid of all the gold diggers, right?
Exactly. Second date one is a really it's pretty hip because it's old. It's not like it's a new, my wiener's too small kind of Porsche. It's like an old vintage.
No, I got it. I have it imagined in my mind. I got it.
Yeah, it's kind of a James Dean kind of vibe, and but easily misinterpreted if you don't know me or the story. Yeah. So I was like, no, I bought that for $2,500, and I put 4 years and 2,000 hours into it. That's why it looks like it does. It's different when you do that.
You built it.
I built it.
Partially.
No, mostly. Like 9. All I didn't do is spray the actual final coat of paint, but I did everything else.
That's awesome. Now you got to text me pictures of your car because I want to see.
It is. It's fancy. It's some Porsche. It's a good looking little rig, and it's weird. It's one of those things where it's. And I do this with almost everything in my life. When I have something that really is cool and sort of is kind of for me, it's kind of a big iconic thing. I'm always like, almost every single time I walk and I look at it, I go, wow, I can't believe that's mine. Like it still mystifies me. I'm sitting here in my little studio. I have what could be regarded as my dream drum set sitting in front of me right here that I just got like 4 months ago. And I walk in every time and I go, holy crap, that's cool. That's so cool. I love that, And I do the same thing with my car. I had this buddy Graham, who's the Scottish guy, and he's like, have you done the Porsche look back yet? And I was like, what? I don't know what that is. And so we're both walking away, and the move is you park your car somewhere in the lot, and inevitably about 10, 20 paces, you turn around and just see how it looks in that particular light sitting in that particular spot. That's the Porsche look back. And I was like, all right, that's pretty funny. But yeah, every time,
that is funny.
I've never not done it. I've never just walked away from the car. So I'm always fascinated. When I open the garage, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe that's mine. It's weird.
So what would you recommend to people who are raising teens or whatever to get out of the brainwashed mindset? Because a lot of traditional schooling is teaching people how to be in what I call indentured servants.
I was hoping you were going to ask me how should parents teach kids proper driving techniques. And I was go into a whole thing about SCCA autocross and how good it was just for daily driving skills. But
no, because you're talking about, a different mindset. And, what I consider, I'm very, very anti-college, anti-higher education, which most people would be like, huh? I think that the current system in this country kind of teaches people to be brainwashed workers. And also, most of the people I know that have higher education, left college with 100,000, 150,000 or more student loan debts,
right? Which
I think is a crime. And with the internet and alternative entrepreneurship, I just don't necessarily know that it's really required anymore. And you will hear the news, and they really push higher education, and they really push, the cost of not getting a higher education. But I kind of think it's a scam.
I don't disagree. One of the guys that I have a few private coaching clients, and one of the guys does this thing that I think is so cool. which is with his kids, he has a policy of no allowance. And what he does instead of allowance, he's told them, he said, look, if there's anything around the house or anything that you see that needs attending, come with me, come to me with a proposal of how much you want to fix that particular item.
That's great.
And I'll pay you for it. And I said, that is amazing. So I love that as an idea of getting kids sort of into the entrepreneurial mindset, because then everyone just starts looking for opportunity. They want to make
that. Kiyosaki talks about that in Rich Dad Poor Dad with the grocery store.
Yes, exactly. But when you leave it sort of like open-ended like that, then it's like, oh, how can I take this and make this thing into an opportunity? So someone says, okay, I'll take the trash out and wash your car for the next year if you pay me X amount of dollars per. Okay, you're going to work, I'm going to pay you for it. And
it's kind of giving the kid an empowerment because they came up with the idea. It's not like you're forcing them, clean the car, do this, do that. Yeah, you're giving them a chance to be autonomous and independent.
It's not capped. That's the part that's beautiful. I mean, he can disapprove it. I don't know that he ever has. But if it's
he's the CEO of the family. No.
Well, but he could say, no, you've asked too much money, but I'll pay you this much for it. And so they really get a real world idea of what this stuff does. And the other thing I really like is that when they have a big purchase, that the parent matches the contribution of the kid. And that's what my dad did. When I wanted my first real BMX bike, I wanted a GT. And we had to go get it in New Jersey, but I had to work my butt off to make like $200 or whatever it was when I was 13. And then he matched it. So while we were able to go in, and just one day I was so excited because we went and bought that. It's almost like having a 401k that they matched. So I really like both of those ideas for teaching kids real world practical application of how to be more wealth minded instead of whatever they teach us in school.
Yeah, and I also think it's really important for people in general to disregard mainstream education and go seek alternative education on their own. Because, I'm a comedian and I don't make a crazy amount of money. I'm not making 6-7 figures or whatever. A lot of people think entertainers, make these crazy amounts of money. Some of them do, and they're really, really higher end of the spectrum, but I don't. But the way that I'm able to live the lifestyle I do is because I save and invest and do other things with my money. And, that's something that's really important. Bernie Mac, rest in peace. He made a lot of money in the entertainment industry, but he didn't stop there. He he's passed away, like half of Chicago, because he took his entertainment money and invested it in real estate, invested it in other things. And, I remember when I started comedy in my late teens, early 20s, I remember meeting other comedians that were in their 30s or 40s that were sleeping on couches, broke, had no money, because they would take that money and go out drinking, gambling, whatever, doing drugs, cocaine, whatever. And so I think it's really important to have like a foundation, whatever you decide to do, whether it's freelance or, traditional or mainstream, and realize that you have to take care of yourself and be financially minded, because no one else is going to be a better financial manager for you than you.
I agree. One thing I think you see happen as a pattern is there's a lot of ways to get into small entrepreneurial ventures. You can sell a product or an information product that you like, or that you made. You can do an affiliate program with someone, whether it's their product that costs money.
It's just looking for those opportunities. Right. They're everywhere, but a lot of people don't think like that. And it's shifting that mindset from someone giving me money. Like, say I'm a comedian, someone pays me to do a gig. Let's say I get paid to do a gig and I make $300, right? I can just make $300 and spend that on groceries and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And then it's, down the toilet. Or I can say, hey, I made $150 and then take the other $150 and look for entrepreneurial activities or investments or ventures with that.
Right. So you can, what I was going to say is that you can start.
Like what I was going to say before you cut me off, Rosie.
Or something like that. Yeah. Is that you can create your own product. You can be like you can do an affiliate sale of somebody else's. You could get into network marketing. You could get into real estate, whatever. But the what happens from there, the thing that the wealthy people end up doing is they take, like you just said, they take that money and then they up level it. They find something to invest in that will then pay dividends for them. And they basically keep doing that. I have a buddy of mine that he started out, he was a mechanic. He was a car mechanic who got into the network marketing biz like 6 years ago. He now makes like $25,000 a week, and now he's starting to buy apartment buildings. Like that's his thing that he's up leveling, like Monopoly. So
exactly. I think Monopoly is a really good example because some people think it's just a game and it's not.
Right. Even if the one business goes away, he's going to have all of these little engines that are providing him with multiple income streams, and he's really going to be set for life at that point. But if you do nothing except either save your money or buy cool stuff once you get that money, then you're going to find yourself in that same situation.
But I think it's really important for people to get the education. Like I'm saying, get the foundation, get the education, because I know so many artists, especially artists, actors, comedians, singers, who say, well, I'm just not good at that stuff. I don't know anything about it. And then they say, I've heard this at least 100 times. Well, I'm just going to try to make it, and then once I'm rich, I'll hire a business manager. Meanwhile, they're making a steady income, even if it's not $100,000 a year, maybe they're making $20,000, $30,000, and they could be themselves investing it and learning about, entrepreneurship and investment and other things, and have already a good nest egg instead of waiting to make it, quote unquote. And you may never make it. Making it in Hollywood is kind of like a gamble. It's a roll of the dice. You never know, but you are getting that money and you can learn now. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I mean, it does to me.
No, because I have so many friends that say, oh, well, I'm not good with money. I don't know anything about money. I'll just get rich and then hire a business manager. And then their business manager steals like 30% and they are completely screwed over.
I think you read books. You read the Sexy Six, or at least the first two, and you'll have a way better opportunity. They come with a warning label, which is if you do actually read them, you will probably be unemployable on the far side. I'm not kidding.
I just want to preach to people, because I think it's so important, and I just know so many people who take the victim mentality or the victim side, and they're just like, oh, well, I'm not getting paid enough, or I'm not, or Rosie, what are you talking about? I don't make enough money to invest or look for entrepreneurial, opportunities. And you do. It doesn't matter how much money you make, even if you live below the poverty line. There is an opportunity. I've seen people change things around and change their mentality and kind of move things around and move budgeting, and they find the money to invest, and it turns into a snowball.
Well, and I had Amy, a woman named Amy Porterfield on my show, who's amyporterfield.com, and she's really amazing. Facebook expert, and you actually used to work for Tony Robbins, and I asked her a question on my show. I said, okay, if you were left with $1,000, but you know what you know now, but you just had $1,000, how much could you turn it into by the end of the month? And she thought for a second, said, probably 10,000. I said, okay, so let's put that in perspective. Just based on some knowledge that I believe that anybody who doesn't know anything about anything, that knowledge that she knows of how to do that can be learned in about 2 focused weeks. So with that knowledge, you could take $1,000 and turn it into 10. Why wouldn't everybody do that?
I think because a lot of people are scared, and I think that scary fear is just silly, and people get inspired.
Your fear is silly. You're dumb for fearing things.
I'm not saying they're dumb. I'm saying that it's...
Shame on you.
I did not say that. I just think that they let it overwhelm them. And it's just like, you have to fall on your butt. It's just like ice skating or riding a bike or whatever. Once it happens and you fall, it's like it hurts really bad and you cry and you scrape your knee or whatever. And then you fall 3 or 4 or 5 times and you're like, okay, whatever. This is stupid. Why was I afraid of that?
Just got to learn to fall up. Good phrases though. Fail forward fast. That's a thing that a lot of guys I know fail forward fast. But I mean, what you're describing is literally the reason why I started a show. So I could highlight these people that have gone through exactly what they're fearing. So if I reinforce that enough, they're going to go, oh, okay, then technically they were exactly like I am. So maybe I do have a shot at being successful at this.
Yep. On the other side of fear, there's freedom.
Boom.
And
how many cliches can we talk to each other? I said fail forward fast.
We love cliches.
We'll be like an athlete pretty soon. Well, we're just out here having some fun, and they're really competitive, and every athlete interview ever that says anything.
Well, I want to inspire people because I want them to know that it is possible, and all these unemployable entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, they're not different than me or you or the next door neighbor. They're not gods. They're not freaks of nature. They're just average people who decided, hey, I'm not going to let the fear control me any longer.
Speak for yourself. I'm just No, that's very true. That's very true. What you say is true, woman.
You're like, I am a supernatural and I have a restored Porsche, so
I would never call it a Porsche. First of all, that would be
Porsche.
I would get in trouble if I said that to people. Yes, it's a guy's name. Let's show some respect. Porsche.
All right. So, Mr. O'Neill, are you what?
Nothing. I was just saying so.
So, I think that's really inspiring, and I think that's a very positive way to look at things. And how many episodes do you release a week? One or two?
Three. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Wow, you're committed. Do you have a record day where you just record one day a week, or you do?
No, I record whenever people are free, basically. Mm-hmm. But you have to understand that this is my legit full-time job now. And in 6 months, my show is, and I'm only saying this because it's fairly common in the kind of online marketing world to say these things, but in 6 months, it's legitimately a 6-figure business now. Mm-hmm. And with that, I do it. It's like it's my full-time gig. That's the whole deal.
And you have so much fun, and you get to have really cool people like me on your show.
Love it. I really do love it. So right after this, I've started this little mastermind group where people can join, and then we all help them get their businesses going. And I'm doing a Google Hangout with them just right after this this interview, which I'm.
So what does that mean, Google Hangout? I don't know about that.
Google Hangout. It's kind of like Skype, except you can see video of each other.
Okay, so it's like 6 people or something like that.
It's 10. Yeah, it's 10. So 10 can view and be on the Hangout at a time, so you can all interact and talk to each other. And then when you actually can click the broadcast button, and anybody who wants to can log on through YouTube and watch it live. So you could actually do a presentation for thousands of people if you wanted to, as long as they click the YouTube link.
That is super cool.
Cool.
And who is going to be at this Google Meetup? The greatest masterminds in the marketing world?
Well, no, I have 37 people in my mastermind group. So
tell us about your mastermind group.
Well, it's called Solo Lab. My show's called the Solopreneur Hour, and whenever I'm working on something, I always call it being in the lab. That's just how I always refer to it. So I started this thing called Solo Lab, which is found at iwantsololab.com. Now, and it's basically when people make this decision that they want to they want to further their education, or they really want to take action on something. I'm a very firm believer. Not only should you read the books and sort of get into the mindset, but you 100% absolutely have to have a coach. You have to have a coach or a mentor.
I agree with you.
Have a single person, Rosie, not one.
120%.
No, I don't know one single person that's successful in this either online space or just as a successful business person that is not paying for coaching from someone. So I have 2 versions. I have this thing called Solo Lab, which anybody can. It's cheap. It's $300 a quarter, and people join. It's really a very active Facebook group, and then we do live Google Hangouts once or twice a week, and they get 2 free 30-minute coaching calls with me. So that's what they get there. And then I have private coaching, which is $500 a month, and they get 2 30-minute coaching calls, and we do a 2-hour VIP session at the beginning. And then they obviously have access to Solo Lab and any other digital product that I put out. So
I want to let the listeners know how important it is to have a coach for personal development and also goal setting, because this is not something that's talked about a lot, and a lot of people I know say, well, why would I need a coach? I can just do it on my own. Every single successful person in whatever field, whether it's sports, whether, whatever it is, has someone supporting them and pushing them along. And just think about it. It's like working out by yourself versus working out with a personal trainer. And Mike is not paying me at all to endorse him. I'm just letting you guys know that it's so important. And if you value your goals, then it's something that you should invest in as well, because it's kind of like, why wouldn't you want someone to have your back? Why wouldn't you want someone to hold you accountable and say, hey, did you follow up on this? Did you do that? I mean, am I right, Mike?
Yeah. And that's 100% right. And if you think about it, you started to frame it that way, but think about every single pro athlete. Do you know one pro athlete that doesn't have a coach?
Well, I think athletics is something that's kind of used more, and people associate coaching with athletics and stuff like that. But it's kind of the same thing, because your physical body, it's like someone pushing you to your physical limit. You know, anyone who's played sports or even just run track or done swimming knows, you know, a coach has they see you as like the higher self. They see you at your best. They see that you can do it, and they're motivating you with negative or positive reinforcement to get there. But a lot of people don't really see the value when it comes to personal development coaching or, you know, goal setting coaching. They think, oh, I'll just set the goal and I'll do it on my own. Guys, how many times have we set goals in our life, whether it's weight loss, whether it's, you know, I'm going to create $10,000 extra a month or whatever, and we fall short of our goals? When you have someone holding you accountable and supporting you and seeing you at a higher level than you can see yourself, or can see the goal or help you see the goal, it's so valuable.
It really is. And the real benefit, I think, for people on the other end is they can certainly go through and learn everything, but this is really a fast track. This is someone that's kind of looking over and going, no, let's course correct on that. Let's course correct on that. And then you really really do build and launch a lot faster than you would on your own. So, and
it's just like, why wouldn't you want to have someone on your side? You know, I think a lot of people don't see the value. Like, why would I pay someone to do this or whatever? And it's like, why, you know, how important is your goal to you? You know, are you going to sit there and have another goal that's not reached? Are you going to really go 100% with it? And, you know, I've done coaching, I've done personal coaching, and I've also been coached, and I found extreme value in both. You know, I love supporting other people to reaching their goals, and I absolutely loved having someone kick my butt to getting my goals. You know, it was amazing. I raised $12,000 with a stand-up comedy benefit for the Midnight Mission Homeless Shelter in LA. And, you know, that was one of my goals. And my coach called me every day. What did you do today to promote the event? You know, what did you do today he called me, and he really, really put the fire to my rear.
Right.
And I wouldn't have created that $12,000. I will tell you right now that show would not have been sold out, and I would not have created that $12,000 benefit if it was not for my coach calling me every single day and putting a fire on my rear.
I believe it. Yeah, that's amazing. And you imagine this. I forget who's your favorite female comic of all time?
Joan Rivers.
Okay, so imagine if you did a 14-day tour and Joan Rivers was in the audience every single day, just coaching you. Like, so you'd get off stage, you guys would go over your set, and she would help you. Imagine what your comedy would be on the other end of that 14 days.
That would be pretty cool.
It would be ridiculous, actually. It would be silly. It would
be silly.
It would be 2 years of advancement in 14 days.
It would, because I would have a master stand-up comedian, master joke writer, and have her, I think Joan is in her 70s. She might be older. I'm really bad at that. But I mean, she has over 40 years, probably 50 years, I don't know, of stand-up comedy experience. It's like you're taking that person's experience and they're channeling it. It's learning without having to kind of make the failures yourself. Like if someone is a pro athlete and they know all the mistakes that they made in their pro career and now they're retired and they're coaching, and you're an amateur athlete, they're going to be able to give you 15, 20 years of experience and just tell you without you making those mistakes. If you want to learn the hard way, that's fine, but you're having an expert, someone who knows how to do it and how it's done. The key is getting a really, really good coach. I mean, there's coaches out there that are also scam artists and don't know what they're doing. But I mean, you know, trust yourself. You're a smart person and figure it out. You know, set a date with a coach and see, does this person fit my needs? Does this person feel like, you know, they're going to push me? But remember, you know, coaching is not always, especially in business and goal setting and entrepreneurship and personal development, it's not always going to be pretty. Sometimes they're going to point out stuff that maybe you need to course correct that's not so fun.
No,
so
that's right.
don't get mad at the person. You have to be able to take the punches too and realize that you're paying this person to have your best interest.
Right.
So if someone said, just as a physicality as an example, if you need to run 5 extra miles a day, if you're training for a marathon, you have a marathon coach or whatever, you're not going to be happy hearing that.
Right.
But it's going to improve your time. It's going to improve, the same thing with business coaching or whatever. If, Mike, I don't know what type of advice or feedback you give, but if you're saying, hey, you need to do this, and it's something the client doesn't want to hear, they can blame you and say, well, Mike's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Or they can take the advice in and say, hey, I'm paying this person to tell me the pleasant things and the not so pleasant things. And it's going to forward me to reaching my goal. Because sometimes we can't always see the things that we need to correct about ourselves.
Yeah, and my people are pretty well vetted on each end. They've heard me now, 84 times on the show, so they know. No, I'm being serious. So they know how I teach and how I present things. So when they're able to do that, they get a really good idea of what my voice is and how I'm going to sort of structure the coaching, and that's the major indication for them. And I suggest that to anybody because there's a million different sort of life coaches, business coaches. Find one that really resonates with you and how you like to interpret things. Because, like you said, some people are just kind of demanding, don't do this, and blah, blah, blah. That might not work for people. Like, I have to be coached a certain way because I get defensive and I'm like, nah. But,
But if you're getting defensive, then they're actually hitting a nerve, and that's a good thing.
Or they're not. Or I think there's other ways to structure this conversation that's all. It's cool. But the point of all this is, no matter who you choose someone, because it is going to help if you do become unemployable, getting a coach one way or the other is going to help you get to that next level.
Yes, and I think everyone should try it, whatever your goal is, whether your goal is like personal weight loss or development or entrepreneurship. I think it's really, really important to have someone at your back that has that has got you and can push you forward to the next level, because that is a secret, I think, of truly successful people. And I just know so many people who are like, oh, I don't need that. That's a waste of money or whatever. Don't bash it till you try it. It's very, very, very effective. And I've done it. Michael is a coach, and it's amazing.
And I'm being coached. I'm paying thousands of dollars a month to be coached. By the way, Joan's 80.
She's 80. You looked it up?
80, yes.
I think she started in her late 20s. So that is over 50 years of stand-up comedy experience. If I had a chance for Joan Rivers to coach me, I would let that happen, because obviously I'm going to be taking her experience and she's going to be channeling it into all the advice and feedback she's giving me. And so it just makes sense to hire a coach. It just makes sense if, it's investing in yourself. I consider an investment in yourself if you really think that goal is important. You can try to do it on your own, and I'm sure you will, reach it or have a positive result, but the results are like amplified when you have someone coaching you.
It's all very true. So coaching.
Put
a stamp on it.
Put a stamp on it. And, for stand-up, I've had people help me with my writing. I've had people, I love feedback. A lot of comedians get, insulted. I've had comedians come up to me, hey, do you mind if I give you a joke? Or, hey, if I give you a tag? And I always say, yeah. Because
that's what I was going to ask. If someone heard that and say, oh, that would be a cool tag. I heard that.
A lot of people get offended. It depends on the way you say it. I've had people come up to me and be like, oh, I have a joke for you. And if they're a civilian, usually it's a street joke or an internet joke. And I just smile and, and I'm courteous. But 9 times out of 10, I can't use it because it's not, like a legitimate joke that I can use. And it gets kind of annoying. So people, please don't do that to stand-up comedians. But if another comedian comes up to me and was like, hey, I was watching your set and it would be kind of funnier if you said it this way, or why don't you say this at the end of it? I always say, yeah, sure. Can I try that? And they'll say yes. And then I'll try it. And if it works, I'll keep it. And if it doesn't work, I won't keep it. And if it kind of works, then I'll tweak it. But why not? Like, why not give me feedback? Why not try, 2 minds are better than 1. And, 10 minds are better than 1. And so when people give me feedback, or comedians give me feedback, or I always try it. I just try it at least, and if it doesn't work and I totally bomb and it's not funny, I go, okay, note to self, that didn't work.
what you just said right there, and we talked about this on my show, what you said, exactly that. Oh, I'll try it. Oh, I guess that didn't work. That totally bombed. That's exactly the mindset that a good entrepreneur has. It's exactly the same. You try something, audience didn't really like that one, or try this, that didn't really work out. I couldn't really pull that off. I'll try something else. And that's it. It's not like you're going to go, oh my God, I'm going to fail as a comedian now because that joke bombed. And that's
and it's about depersonalizing it and not taking it personal. Like, I know a lot of people, they see failure as like it's a part of them. A part of them is failing. No, it's just we're all different. We all have many aspects of our personality. If a joke doesn't work, it has nothing to do with me. And my value as a human being. It's just, hey, that joke didn't work. The people didn't like it. I didn't say it right. I didn't craft it correctly. And it's the same thing, I think, with business entrepreneurship and investing and all those things. It's like it doesn't, you have to depersonalize it. You know, that's something that I've learned about money is depersonalizing. If you're so attached to the joke working and you're so invested in it, people are going to feel that energy and your joke's not going to do that well. You know, you can have it be personal, but if you're like clinging on to it, like if this joke doesn't work, I'm going to kill myself. You know, the audience is going to feel that weirdness. And it's the same thing with money. Money is a tool. It's a tool that you can use to increase wealth. And if you're so attached to losing money and so afraid of risk and so it's not going to work. You have to look at it as what it is. It's a tool and not make it part of your identity.
I agree. 100%. You're right. Everything right on all counts, Rosie.
I know, and I'm so excited that I guessed 3 of your books, and I'm so sad that I didn't know the other 3, but now I get to read them, and I get to get on with the Sexy 6, and you guys get to listen to at home and get these books and get inspired to become unemployable, because it's so important to not be, I am like deeply into alternative thinking, out of the box thinking. That's what my podcast is called, Out of the Box. I just think that we need to find another way because, sometimes the mainstream ideas, they don't work. The conventional thinking, it's like wives' tales. And you got to find out what works for you. Michael, I got to wrap up. I'm so sad that our hour's over.
Just like that. It was like breathing. It went so fast.
Okay. What do you have anything you're promoting that the listeners would like to hear? What is your Facebook, your Twitter, your website?
Everything is Solo Hour, H-O-U-R, right? I'm sorry, H-O-U. So
how do we spell hour?
So it's solohour.com, at Solo Hour on Twitter, facebook.com/Solo Hour. We have a free Facebook group called Proudly Unemployable. And that is solopreneurhour.com/group. And you can get into that sucker. And it's free. And that's just kind of that would be a good little intermediate step for people that might be interested in coaching, in between that and listening to the show, and they go, oh, okay, then that could be a thing. And then then we bring them into Solo Lab, and then they're ours forever.
They have sold their souls. Thank you so much, Michael O'Neill, host of Solopreneur Hour, for coming on Out of the Box. Guys, don't forget to go on hugmetees.com and buy a t-shirt, support the podcast. Hug Me Tees, spread love, give a hug, and also check out outoftheboxpodcast.com. If you guys enjoyed us, click on the donate button. We're now accepting Bitcoins and Litecoins. And subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher and leave a comment. It really helps us out a lot. And if you leave a positive comment and you message me, I will send you some free goodies because that's how I roll. Thank you so much for being Out of the Box today with Rosie Tran.